It's almost comeback time, as EastEnders is officially reuniting all three Mitchell siblings: Phil, Grant and Sam, Steve McFadden, Ross Kemp and Kim Metcalf. The Mitchells have been having a tough time of late en masse. Phil struggled deeply with caring for his best friend, Nigel Bates, Paul Bradley. Nigel's return saw him reveal that he'd been diagnosed with dementia, and Phil pledged to be there for him as the disease progressed, becoming one of Nigel's primary carers alongside Julie, Karen Henthorne. Since Nigel was moved into a care home, Phil hasn't been to visit, unable to deal with his ever-worsening condition and his own feelings of failure for being unable to care for him at home. Sam, meanwhile, has been fighting her own war since returning to Walford, when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She bravely faced the initial appointment and underwent a lumpectomy, with this week showing her confide in Zach Hudson, James Farrar, that she's cancer-free. Grant's son, Mark Fowler Jr., Stephen Aaron Sipple, has also made his way back to the square, having apparently inherited his paternal family's taste for dabbling in organized crime, with Phil having to save him from some particularly bloodthirsty gangsters. While watching Phil and Sam mend their sibling bond and seeing him step up as her support system as she faced her cancer head-on was incredibly heartwarming, and a welcome break from seeing the Mitchell clan wrapped up in criminal capers. One vital ingredient has been missing: the third piece of the puzzle. Grant. Upon the announcement of his return back in February, Ross said, "I'm truly delighted to be stepping back into Grant Mitchell's shoes and returning to EastEnders later this year." As well as exploring Grant's attempts to reconnect with his son Mark, it's especially an honor to be part of Nigel's powerful ongoing dementia storyline, which holds deep personal meaning for me, due to a close family connection in real life. Next week sees Sam faced with the grave task of telling Phil that Nigel's pneumonia has significantly worsened. As news of his continued deterioration reaches both Sam and Mark, the latter suggests they call Grant and tell him, with Grant having shared his own friendship with Nigel. Sam tells him it's fruitless though. She's tried contacting Grant numerous times to no avail, and she's struck with just how far the siblings have drifted away from one another after the Mitchell matriarch and undisputed Queen of Walford, Peggy Barbara Windsor, passed away. Mark suggests that Nigel could be just what's needed to reunite the three of them, but Sam doesn't buy it. As she leaves though, Mark is unable to let the idea go. He rings Grant and asks him to come home. What's in store for the reunited family? Will Nigel's illness rebuild their broken bonds, or are the siblings too far gone? In true EastEnders fashion, just when fans think they've figured out the next big twist, the show pulls the rug out from under them. The long-awaited return of Grant Mitchell has finally been confirmed, but the real shock isn't that he's coming back. It's who brings him back to Albert Square. And trust us, it's not who anyone expected. For weeks, speculation has been running wild, with tensions rising across Walford and several storylines reaching boiling point. Viewers were convinced that Grant's return would be tied to his brother, Phil Mitchell. After all, the Mitchell brothers are legendary, volatile, loyal, and never far from chaos. It would have made perfect sense for Phil to call in backup. But EastEnders had other plans. A return wrapped in mystery. Instead of a dramatic call from Phil or a crisis involving the Mitchell empire, insiders reveal that Grant's return is triggered by someone far less obvious. Someone who has quietly been operating in the background. Enter a surprising figure. A character who has history with Grant but not in the way fans typically remember. This isn't about brotherhood or business. It's about unfinished business, buried secrets, and a past that refuses to stay buried. The show cleverly avoids the predictable route, choosing instead to reintroduce Grant through a deeply personal connection. And that choice changes everything. The emotional hook no one saw coming. What makes this twist so powerful is the emotional weight behind it. Grant isn't storming back into Walford for revenge or power. At least, not initially. He's drawn back by something more human, more vulnerable. Sources suggest that the character responsible reaches out to Grant during a moment of desperation. One that forces him to confront parts of his past he's long tried to escape. This isn't the hardened Grant Mitchell fans remember. This is a man being pulled back into a world he thought he'd left behind for good. And when he arrives, let's just say Albert Square isn't ready. Shockwaves through Walford. Grant's return doesn't just affect one storyline. It sends shockwaves through the entire square. Old rivalries reignite. Long-buried tensions resurface. And for some residents, his presence is nothing short of terrifying. Phil, in particular, is blindsided. Expecting to be the one in control, he suddenly finds himself on the back foot. The dynamic between the Mitchell brothers shifts dramatically, with unresolved issues bubbling to the surface almost immediately. But Phil isn't the only one rattled. Other familiar faces begin to worry about what Grant's return might expose. Secrets that have been carefully hidden could finally come to light, and not everyone will come out unscathed. A game-changing twist. What EastEnders does best is subverting expectations, and this storyline is a perfect example. By avoiding the obvious choice and introducing a more complex emotional trigger, the show adds depth to Grant's return. It's not just a cameo. It's not just nostalgia. The character who brings Grant back becomes just as important as Grant himself, setting off a chain reaction that could reshape multiple storylines. Their motivations, their history with Grant, and the consequences of their decision will all play a crucial role in what unfolds next. Why this matters for fans. For longtime viewers, Grant Mitchell, famously portrayed by Ross Kemp, is one of the most iconic figures in EastEnders history. His returns are always explosive, but this one feels different. It's more layered, more emotional, more unpredictable. And that unpredictability is exactly what keeps fans hooked. What happens next? As the storyline unfolds, expect plenty of twists, confrontations, and emotional moments. The identity of the person who brings Grant back will continue to ripple through Walford, influencing decisions, alliances, and betrayals. And if there's one thing EastEnders guarantees, it's this. Nothing stays hidden forever. Grant's return isn't just about the past. It's about what happens next. And with secrets hanging by a thread, one wrong move could change everything. One thing's for sure. You may not have expected who brings Grant back, but you definitely won't forget what happens when he arrives. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to EastEnders Spoilers Official.